1054, possible code 4, 452 Elm Street, female, approximately 28 years old, no signs of life, advise responding units, possible overdose. Welcome to True Crime Chronicles. The call came in at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday. A boyfriend had found his girlfriend unresponsive in their apartment, a syringe on the floor, a lighter, a spoon. The scene screamed overdose. The police assumed it was simple, another life lost to addiction, case closed by sunrise. They were wrong. Every assumption they made that night would be tested. Every belief they held about the victim, the suspect, and the evidence would be shattered. What looked like an overdose was actually a murder. What looked like a grieving boyfriend was actually a killer. And what looked like an open and shut case became the investigation that tested every assumption. I'm your host. This is True Crime Chronicles. The investigation that tested every assumption. The apartment was at 452 Elm Street, a small one-bedroom unit in a working-class neighborhood. The victim was Kelsey Morgan, 28 years old. She had a history of substance abuse. She had been to rehab twice. She was trying to get clean. Her boyfriend, Derek Vance, found her. He told police he had gone to bed around midnight. He woke up at 3:30 a.m. to use the bathroom. He found Kelsey on the couch. She was not breathing. He called 911 immediately. I tried to wake her up. I shook her. I screamed her name. She was cold. She was so cold. I should have stayed up with her. I should have been there. This is my fault. Detective Olivia Reed arrived at 4:15 a.m. She was 39 years old, 14 years on the force, and had worked over 100 overdose cases. She had seen this scene before, many times. A young woman, a needle, a tragic end. Everything about this scene said overdose. The syringe, the spoon, the lighter, Kelsey's history, the boyfriend's story. It all fit, but something bothered me. The syringe was on the floor, but the cap was on the needle. Addicts don't recap needles. They drop them. They leave them uncapped. Someone put that cap back on after the syringe was used. Detective Reed documented everything: the position of the body, the syringe, the spoon, the lighter, the time on Derek's phone when he called 911, the condition of the apartment. It was clean, too clean. Most overdose scenes are chaotic. This one was neat, almost staged. I asked Derek when he last saw Kelsey alive. He said midnight. I asked what she was doing. He said watching TV. I asked if she seemed high. He said no, but the toxicology report would tell a different story, and that story would break every assumption we made that night. The autopsy was performed the next morning by Dr. Lisa Park, a forensic pathologist with 20 years of experience. The external examination showed no signs of trauma, no bruises, no needle marks besides the one on Kelsey's arm. Everything pointed to an overdose. The toxicology screen came back positive for heroin, but the levels were not lethal. They were high, but not high enough to kill a person with Kelsey's tolerance. Something else was in her system, something unexpected. The toxicology report revealed fentanyl, a lethal amount. Kelsey Morgan had been injected with a dose of fentanyl that was 10 times the normal street level. This was not a typical overdose. This was an execution. Fentanyl is powerful, but even a heavy user would not voluntarily take this much. Someone gave her this dose. Someone wanted her dead. The first assumption had been tested and broken. This was not an accidental overdose. This was a homicide, and the primary suspect was the last person to see Kelsey alive, her boyfriend, Derek Vance. Detective Reed brought Derek Vance in for formal questioning. He arrived with a lawyer. He was calm, too calm for a man who had just lost his girlfriend to an overdose. He did not ask about the toxicology report. He did not ask about the funeral. He asked only when he could go home. "Derek, We know Kelsey didn't die of an overdose. She died of fentanyl poisoning. The amount in her system was not accidental. Someone injected her with that dose. Someone who had access to her. Someone who was alone with her that night. I didn't kill her. I loved her. Why would I kill her? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Detective Reed ran a background check on Derek Vance. He had no criminal record. He had a steady job. He had no history of violence. He seemed like a grieving boyfriend. That was the second assumption, that Derek Vance was innocent. But assumptions are not evidence. Reed dug deeper. She requested Derek's phone records. She found something unexpected. Derek had been texting another woman for months. The woman's name was Tara Simmons. She was 26 years old. She worked at the same company as Derek. I interviewed Tara. She told me that Derek had been promising to leave Kelsey for over a year. He said Kelsey was unstable. He said she was holding him back. He said he wished she would just disappear. Those were his exact words. I wish she would just disappear. The second assumption had been tested and broken. Derek Vance was not a grieving boyfriend. He was a man with a motive. A man who wanted Kelsey gone. A man who had access to drugs. A man who was alone with her the night she died. But motive is not evidence. Reed needed proof. Detective Reed obtained a search warrant for Derek Vance's apartment, the same apartment where Kelsey had died. The search took 4 hours. Investigators found something unexpected. In the bedroom closet, behind a box of old clothes, they found a small bag. Inside the bag was a vial of liquid. The label had been removed, but forensic testing revealed the contents. Pure fentanyl, enough to kill 10 people. The fentanyl in the vial matches the fentanyl found in Kelsey Morgan's system. Same batch, same purity level. This was not street drugs. This was pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl. Someone with medical access or dark web connections. Detective Reed ran Derek Vance's financial records. She found multiple payments to a cryptocurrency exchange. She found a dark web purchase history. Derek Vance had bought fentanyl online. He had been planning this for months. The third assumption was that Derek was an ordinary guy, a normal boyfriend, a grieving partner, but he wasn't any of those things. He was a calculated killer. He bought the poison, he injected her while she slept, he staged the scene to look like an overdose, and then he called 911 with tears in his eyes. Derek Vance was arrested at his workplace. He did not resist. He did not speak. He asked for a lawyer. But the evidence was overwhelming. The fentanyl in the closet, the dark web purchases, the cryptocurrency payments, the text messages to Tara, the timeline, the staged scene. For 6 hours, Derek Vance sat in the interrogation room and said nothing. He stared at the wall. He asked for his lawyer repeatedly, but his lawyer was out of town. Derek was alone. At hour 7, he spoke. She was never going to get better. She was always going to be an addict. She was always going to drag me down. I couldn't leave her. She would have killed herself, or worse, she would have taken me with her. So I did what I had to do. You injected her with fentanyl while she slept. Yes. And then you staged the scene. Yes, I put the syringe on the floor. I put the spoon and the lighter. I made it look like she did it to herself. I waited an hour. Then I called 911. I practiced crying in the bathroom mirror. I wanted to be believable. Were you? You tell me. You're the one who arrested me. The confession was recorded. It lasted 42 minutes. Derek Vance described every detail of the murder, the staging, and the cover-up. He showed no emotion. He spoke like a man describing a business transaction. The fourth assumption had been tested and broken. The assumption that killers confess out of guilt. Derek Vance did not confess out of guilt. He confessed because he was caught, and even then he showed no remorse. The trial of Derek Vance for the first-degree murder of Kelsey Morgan began 8 months after his arrest.
The prosecution presented 12 days of evidence: the fentanyl, the vial, the dark web purchases, the cryptocurrency payments, the text messages, the confession.
The defense argued that Kelsey had injected herself. They said Derek was a victim of circumstance. They said the fentanyl in the closet was for his own use. They said the confession was coerced. He did not confess because he was coerced. He confessed because he was caught. The evidence was overwhelming. The fentanyl in his closet matched the fentanyl in her blood. The dark web purchases were traced to his computer. The text messages proved his motive. This was not an accident. This was murder. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. On the charge of murder in the first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Mr. Vance, you took a life. You staged that life to look like an accident. You manipulated everyone around you. You showed no remorse. You showed no humanity. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kelsey Morgan's mother, Susan, spoke at the sentencing. She stood at the podium and looked directly at Derek Vance. My daughter was not perfect. She struggled. She made mistakes, but she was trying. She was getting better, and you took that from her. You took her from me. You took her from her brother. You took her from everyone who loved her. I hope you rot in hell. Derek Vance is currently incarcerated at a maximum security prison. He has filed 2 appeals. Both have been denied. He maintains that he did nothing wrong. He told a prison psychologist, "She was going to die anyway. I just sped it up." Tara Simmons, the woman Derek had been texting, moved out of state. She told a reporter, "I didn't know. I didn't know he was capable of this. I thought he was just unhappy. I was wrong." The apartment at 452 Elm Street was rented to a new tenant. The landlord replaced the couch. He painted the walls. But some things, the neighbors say, never really leave. The investigation that tested every assumption began with a simple overdose and ended with a convicted murderer. Every assumption the police made that night was wrong. The victim was not a statistic. The boyfriend was not grieving. The scene was not an accident. Detective Olivia Reed later said, "This case taught me that assumptions are the enemy of justice. You cannot assume anything. You cannot believe the first story you hear. You have to test everything. You have to question everything. You have to look closer." Kelsey Morgan's mother started a foundation in her daughter's name. It provides addiction counseling and recovery support to young women. She told a reporter, "Kelsey's life mattered. Her struggle mattered. Her death does not define her. Her fight defines her." You have been listening to True Crime Chronicles. This was the investigation that tested every assumption. No continuation, no open threads, just a story, a closed file, and the quiet truth that assumptions are dangerous, but the truth is not. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and remember, never assume. Always look closer.